I love filming these after a win. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But guys, welcome back to your latest video on Simple Milan. And today we're going to talk about the one and only Il Presidente, number 79. Frank the Tank, whatever you want to call him, Franck Kessie. And why I believe, in my opinion, he is Milan's MVP, the best player of the season. And regardless of how we finish this season and regardless of how it turns out, whether it's top four or not, for me, he is the shining light. He embodies consistency, and we're going to talk a little bit about him here, and I'm going to basically praise the player and show you how much he's developed throughout his years as a Milan player, and why, yeah, in my opinion, he's the best player in the team right now. Well, not the best player, but at least the most important player to this season. So let's touch on Kessie's history as a Milan player. And he joined the club in 2017, which was the window when the Chinese takeover happened and Mirabelli started buying players like they were a bunch of Panini stickers. And he was one of Mirabelli's first transfers. It came with a lot of attention from Europe. Pretty much all of the Premier League top 6 teams wanted him, more rumoured to want him. And he was ironed on the deal to join Roma, and that was pretty much done until Mirabelli came at the last minute and worked out a deal for Kessie, which was a loan with a right to buy, and the total deal value comes to around 32 million euros mark. So yeah, Kessie joined the club, and to be honest, he didn't quite set things alight at first, and it wasn't really his fault. I can't really blame Kessie. He was a young player that joined the club. He had a couple years under his belt, one with Atalanta, and I believe he was in Serie B the year before that. And basically the inconsistency with management and tactics at the club didn't really help his evolution as a player. Montella had the issues of what tactics to go with. He swapped out from his preferred 4-3-3 to a 3-5-2 formation, which even though Kessie was used to it at Atalanta, it was just a mishmash of players at Milan and lacked organisation, and that obviously affected his play. And basically reverted back to a 4-3-3, and you try to use Kessie as a box-to-box midfielder. But I guess in a 4-3-3, you're kind of relying more on someone with a bit more, technique and tactical savvy in that position. And Kessie at the time was very naive and had a lot to learn in that position. So once again, the 4-3-3 didn't also help out his situation at the club. Unfortunately for Kessie's evolution as a player, things didn't really get better with Gattuso as coach. And despite building a good chemistry with Bakayoko in the 4-3-3 midfield, we weren't seeing the best of Kessie, to be honest. When we think about the player, we think about a box-to-box midfielder with a lot of strength, etc. He's not a Frank Lampard. Let's get that straight, or a Steven Gerrard. Kessie is very unique in his skills, and a lot of people think of him as a defensive midfielder. A lot of people think of him potentially as a box-to-box midfielder. He's a hybrid. He is kind of one of all these things, but he's not one at the same time. And this is really something that wasn't tapped into until Stefano Pioli arrived to the club. So here we are today, and Milan's team set up right now, coached by Stefano Pioli, and leads us to the point where what I'm doing this video for. Why I think he is the MVP. We're talking about a player who was previously not a figurehead of the Milan team, was a typical player. He was a certified starter, but he wasn't someone you could rely upon to win games or even be consistently great. And this is all credit to obviously the coach Stefano Pioli and finding him a system where he can basically fulfill his potential. And this obviously comes from Stefano Pioli's change to a 4-2-3-1 formation. And I can't do this video today without talking about Ismail Bennacer, because he's just as important to Kessie as Kessie is to him. They work perfectly, and Milan fans, we all know this. We can see it, the difference between us having them two on the pitch, or as opposed to like if Bennacer's injured and we have to play a Tonali or Mate. I can't say when Kessie's injured because he's never injured, and we'll come on to that in a bit. So Franck Kessie isn't your typical defensive midfielder, and when I say that, it can sound a bit confusing, but to understand this, you really have to see how Milan play and Stefano Pioli as a setup of the team. And let me explain it first and bring in Bennacer back into the equation. The quarterback of the team is Bennacer. Let's not kid about that. He is someone who's probably has the best passing range at the club next to Hakan Çalhanoğlu, and Kessie isn't that. But Kessie does the simple things right, and he's also not at the same time a Gennaro Gattuso player. Kessie is a unique player, and let's break down what he does for the club defensively, in possession, and also offensively. So when Milan are in possession, and most importantly, say from when we're having a goal kick, for example, you'll notice that we don't really like to take goal kicks traditionally and hoof the ball upfield. We like to play it out from the back, most preferably to the centre-backs, and obviously then to the full-backs, or even to the defensive midfielders, the double pivot midfielders. And the reason we do that is to invite pressure from the opposing team's offense. And to do that is so we can eventually work in, one-touch passes and get the ball moving upfield and then create one-on-one opportunities. And to do this importantly, and you'll find a lot of teams struggle to do this when they don't have the players suited for it. And this, once again, is where Kessie deserves credit. You have to have people who are A, confident on the ball, B, good passers, and look at the stats. Look at the stats for Franck Kessie. The guy has got a 92% passing accuracy in his own half of the pitch. He has 88% passing accuracy regardless of where it is on the pitch, and that's a little sort of note for you guys who do the podcast as well. You were discussing this on last weekend's episode. Kessie's passing is on point, and not a lot of people think of that. They think of a defensive midfielder, a brute, a guy who's just strong. He's a solid passer. He's confident on the ball, and when we play out from the back, you can see it. I never have any doubt in my mind that he's going to lose possession, and he just does the simple things right. He gives it back to the centre back. He gives it to the full-backs. Starts up an attack or an eventual passes leading to an attack. But just knowing you have that safety blanket that he's not going to give away possession sloppily, easily, just gives you that confidence and makes the whole system and things tick. So with any midfielder in the game, it's not just being in possession what's the most important part of it. It's also what you do defensively and offensively. And let's talk about what Kessie does defensively for the team. Most importantly, and obviously with our incredible fullbacks who like to go forward, like Theo Hernandez and Davide Calabria, but we'll focus more on Theo Hernandez. Theo is a threat going forward, and much to the point where he counts as another winger. There's also a liability with that, because who's going to cover his runs when, say, he loses the ball, 3/4 into the other side of the pitch? That's Kessie, and that's the reason why he's situated on the left of the defensive midfielders, not just only because it allows Benacer to open his passing range being on the right side of it and his left foot, it's to allow Kessie to cover the more attacking fullback, which is Theo Hernandez. Kessie does a great job at this. Kessie is amazing for this. If you look at the heat map on the player, obviously he's kind of situated in the midriff of the midfield, but it's more towards that left back position as well, because he's doing a lot of covering for Theo Hernandez. So defensively, we have to talk about that as one of his main attributes to what he does for the Milan team. Also for the fact of what he does in the middle of the park, where he's just a beast. He's great at stuffing out where potential threats can come from. He marshals the midfield very well. We'll wrap things up about Kessie's defensive duties by talking about how good he is in the press. And obviously we know Milan have a good press, especially when we want to score. And when it comes to moments like this, and we want someone who's going to press into the centre midfielders and obviously put them under pressure. Kessie's amazing for this, wins the ball back quite a lot more than you think in this position. Kessie's great for that. So it's not just sort of what he does defensively in our half of the pitch, it's also what he kind of does winning the ball back in the other team's half. And this leads me on to obviously what he does in the attacking department, and bringing things back to the heat map. Look what he does when he seems to be everywhere on the pitch. Obviously, you can notice on the heat map as well, he also seems to be taking penalties as well, so that's something we're going to get onto in a sec. But he's everywhere on the pitch, and a lot of commentators make jokes about the player. He doesn't seem like he's exerting a lot of energy, or he's running really fast. Kessie's smart. There's a reason why he never gets injured, and there's a reason why he's able to fulfill 90 minutes a game. He uses his pace, he uses his stamina wisely, but the guy knows where to be at the right time. I believe it was a great defender that said, if I feel like I have to make a slide tackle, then I've failed defensively. I think that was Maldini or Nesta, quite ironic. But Kessie is like that. Kessie doesn't put himself into positions where he has to exert himself more than he should have to. He's positionally aware where he needs to be at the right time, and a lot of people don't give him credit for that. So yeah, naturally, we don't really want to rely on Kessie as an attacking midfielder or a box-to-box player, but when times come where we need to score, where the wingers aren't quite doing their jobs, Hakan Çalhanoğlu is not quite doing his job, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is having an off day, Kessie joins up into the attack. He joins into the sort of like box-to-box role, like linking up with Ibra. And the reason for this, especially when teams want to play like a low block, is the fact that we want to add some more physicality to the game. And he's you'll see it. I'm pretty sure he has a good like one opportunity a game where he finds himself, you know, a couple like one-touch passes between either Teo, Rebic, Ibra, Hakan, and he finds himself on the edge of the box or just, you know, just into the box where he's got a shot on goal. We saw it, obviously he scored against Parma with that. He had an opportunity late into the Sampdoria game like that. He just puts himself there because physically he knows he's going to sort of like hold off a centre-back and also have that chance to get a snapshot off. And that's where Kessie gets a lot of his goals, obviously, if they're not penalties. So yeah, we have to come on to penalties, you know, that's the main source of his goals. And that comes from, you know, taking a penalty and scoring a penalty is are two different things. And we've seen that because we can have a striker as good as Stefano, but the point of the matter is you've got to put that goal away. You've got the good penalty technique, keep the goalkeeper guessing. Ibrahimovic is very inconsistent, and that's why Kessie took over, because Kessie is, you know, 90% going to score you a goal from a penalty, despite the fact he has a very unique run up and it's very like nonchalant. It gets it, you know, it gets the job done, and that's the reason he's on 10 league goals this season. That's the reason he's on 11 goals in all competitions. Should be 12 if that referee didn't allow that goal against Man United, but. You know, Kessie, you know, 10 goals in the league for a player who's considered as a, you know, box-to-box defensive midfielder. That's very impressive. Penalties or not, that's really good. And for some of you who don't know about this, this makes Kessie the 5th non-Italian player at AC Milan to reach over 10 or over goals in a league season campaign. And, you know, he's up there with names like Kaká. This isn't something that should be sort of like joked about. That's very good. That is amazing. You know, he's up there with the great names. Regardless if it's penalties or not, it's still a good thing to have under your locker. I know what you're thinking. The guy scores loads of penalties. He's good at defending. Why is he the MVP? And I'll tell you why he's the MVP for me. He's never injured. He is never injured. And, all right, maybe I'm sort of like going a bit overboard with that. The guy's had one injury in his career as a Milan player. That was for 4 days in 2018, 2019. 4 days he was injured for. And in light of the way the season's going in this unique injury crisis and COVID, you know, riddling people left, right and centre, the guy's an international, so he goes on international duty every time Ivory Coast want him to come. But he's never injured. And that is so important for the consistency of the club, for, you know, keeping us in second place this season, keeping us in first place for most of the season. We have to give credit to a player like him who's always constantly been available and he's always constantly consistent for what he does on the pitch. He makes everyone else better, and I think everyone loves him. And that's the thing, like, it's more than just what you do in a flash of the pan moment. It's more than just scoring a good, like, couple of goals and then disappearing for a while. He's consistently there. He's everyone's favourite player. He's, you know, he's the president. He's the guy, he is the MVP in my mind. You know, the guy right now has a value of around 50 million euros. I think it should be more around the 60 million mark. The guy's 24 years old. He's incredible. I don't want to lose this player. And this is important because he has a contract, only 1 year left until 2022. We have to get that renewed. I believe he earns about 2.2 million euros a year. That's pretty decent. You know, it's a good contract to have him on. He deserves to have more due to his importance at the club. So there's only so much you can play a player in his position. Hopefully we can meet around like 3-4 million euros. That'd be great. But we need to keep this guy. He is a crucial piece to our setup. And, you know, we can talk about the more technique-based players like Benacer and Çalhanoğlu. Yeah, Benacer, injuries, Çalhanoğlu, hot and cold. You know what you're going to get with Kessie at the end of the day. You know what you're going to get. And, yeah, so we're going to wrap things up here today. We're talking about Franck Kessie. Because to me, I just love the guy so much. You can see it. I'm smiling. I love doing this video talking about a player that I love. Kessie's amazing to me, and for all these reasons that we've talked about before. To me, this year, since the turn of COVID, he's turned his career around as a Milan player. But the difference is he's been consistent. He's not just great one moment, bad the next. You know what you're going to get from him. He is probably the most consistent player of the team. He's my MVP. And guys, I want your opinions on this one. Not just if you think Franck Kessie's amazing. Who do you think the MVP is if we're going to end the season today? Franck Kessie for me. So until next time, guys, Forza Milan.